This is the Orange Box. It was a collection of games that were released in 2007, and at the time it was described as the best deal in gaming. Valve, coming off the highly influential title Half-Life, had big expectations to meet with its sequel. Graphics and computing power were advancing at an incredible rate during this time. In the console space, you went from very early polygons with the PlayStation 1 and Nintendo 64. Then you go to almost lifelike models with the 6th generation of video game consoles. On the PC front, games are already pushing the technological envelope by that time. Valve developed the Source engine to power its next generation games, boasting innovations in character animation and physics simulations. This was a catalyst for Half-Life 2. Released in 2004, Half-Life 2 was the first game for Valve's new digital distribution program called Steam. While Steam is the #1 digital storefront on PC today, at the beginning it didn't offer players much, really only allowing an easy way to download patches for Valve's games. It wouldn't really take off until 2007 when community features were added and other publishers started to sell their games on Steam. The time between Half-Life 1 and 2 was 6 years, which at the time was considered a long time between sequels. Nowadays, that would be considered standard. In an effort to release more games, Valve, instead of creating a third game, they would develop shorter episodic games using the Source engine. The Half-Life 2 episode games were going to be a trilogy of games released first in 2006 with Half-Life 2 Episode 1. A trilogy. Episode 2 was set to be released in 2007, but Valve also wanted to release all their Source engine games on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. Instead of releasing all of them individually like they have been on PC, Valve opted to bundle them all together and called it the Orange Box. This collection had everything you could want from first-person video games. You had the now, at the time critically acclaimed Half-Life 2, then the first and next installment, Half-Life 2 Episode 2. So you had that single-player story-driven games taken care of. Then for multiplayer you had the new Team Fortress 2, which went through its own development woes of a long production cycle. Then there was the first-person puzzle game, a small, unassuming game called Portal. When Valve wasn't developing their own original titles, they would often bring on teams of modders or students to recreate games for Valve titles. This happened with games like Counter-Strike, Day of Defeat, Dota 2, and Team Fortress. There was a title created by the DigiPen Institute of Technology students called Narbecular Drop. It was a game where the player controlled the placement of two portals, allowing you to go through one to come out of the other. The challenge of the game is that the player is unable to jump, so they have to use the portals to complete challenges to enter the next room. Unfortunately, the game doesn't play well on modern hardware, as higher refresh rates break the game, and the ability to look through portals is completely lost. Upon seeing the game in action at a career fair, Valve hired a team to create an original game using the portal mechanics, thus creating the Portal that we know today. Portal is a short game. Usual playthroughs barely scratch over an hour. You start inside the Aperture Science Research Facility, waking up from a sleeping pod. You hear a voiceover and see a countdown clock. This is GLaDOS, the voice that will guide you to the game. While waiting, the voiceover glitches out, which is really the first clue that something's not quite right with this facility. Once the countdown ends, a portal opens and you see yourself through the portal. I remember the first time I played this game, I was amazed that that's me, and I'm also me. This sounds really silly now, but it was really new and interesting at the time. The main goal of the game is going through completing the various test chambers, with the end goal being some cake. You start with simple things like putting boxes on buttons, then you get the portal gun with the ability to shoot one portal, then later both portals. I really like how the game gives you a small element, then gradually adds more complicated elements. Timing to have energy balls go into their receptacles, and even using momentum to do some light platforming. Which platforming usually doesn't work well in first-person shooters, but here it works because it's not about jumping, but hurling yourself through the air. Eventually you get some enemies like turrets that shoot at you when they see you. You have to use your environment to take them out because, well, you can't exactly shoot things, can you? As you go along the test chambers, you come across a piece of the wall sticking out. Once you remove the boxes, you can actually go behind it, into a backstage area. However, things don't look exactly normal. The cake is a lie? This is how the storied portal is told to you. You come across these writings throughout the game, often nonsensical, but hinting that there is perhaps more to this facility. In fact, why do the turrets talk? Why do things almost scream when you vaporize them? Why do we have to euthanize the weighted companion cube? Is it alive? GLaDOS' voiceovers are often humorous, but also weirdly dry. If we are being tested, why don't we see people observing us? And what is this testing even for? Upon completing the final test chamber, you see the sign for cake, but that sure doesn't look like cake to me. This is the twist of Portal. You go through the entire game being strung along just to be sent to die at the end. The first time I played through this segment, I didn't know what to do, so I just kind of waited on the lift and just died in the fire. Firing a portal and getting off the platform is what you're supposed to do and start the final act of the game, escaping Aperture Laboratories. These backroom levels aren't often looked back on fondly. They are confusing with small layouts and not being very clear on where to go. Which is really the point of these sections. You're not going through clean, organized test chambers. Things are supposed to be a little dirty and feel like you shouldn't be seeing these areas. But when I think of the ending of Portal, I only remember the actual ending, and small slideshow talking about Black Mesa, connecting the story between Portal and Half-Life, which rounds out the orange box very nicely. Once you finally confront GLaDOS, you see that she's just a machine with wires hanging everywhere. A small round piece falls off of her, and you promptly incinerate it. GLaDOS reveals that, in fact, she killed everyone inside the facility with neurotoxin. This is why you don't see anyone. This is why you found those Ratman dens. Why GLaDOS tried to kill you. So much for this being a small, unassuming game. She starts flooding the room, and you have a timer to defeat GLaDOS. You have to use the rocket turret in the room to shoot through a portal and hit her so another corpse falls off. Then you incinerate them. Each having very distinct personalities. Once they are all gone, that's it. GLaDOS is defeated. You start ascending, and then you're finally outside with parts of GLaDOS laying around you. This is where Portal used to end, but if you're playing the latest PC version or the Nintendo Switch port, a robotic voice is heard before dragging you away for an unknown fate. The credits play with the iconic song Still Alive playing. Nothing beats completing Portal for the first time. With its short runtime, it lends itself for repeat playthroughs. But it being a puzzle game, you don't get the same satisfaction as beating the test chambers like you did for the very first time. Like for instance, Test Chamber 14, I don't complete it the regular way anymore, I just do the shortcut every time. Do I feel smart for doing the shortcut? First time I did, but every other time it just feels routine. But it's not only about the puzzles, it's about the setting, the storytelling, the experience of playing Portal, one I'm glad I tried on the orange box. By the way, after the end of the game, it shows a scene with a cake. So, I guess the cake wasn't a lie. I mean, I wouldn't eat it.